Hello everyone, Archana is here. Welcome to the 11th session of presentation, ICSE Class 10, Paper 2, Literature in English. In today's session, let us deal with the last prose, that is 10th prose, All Summer in a Day, written by Ray Bradbury. About the author, Ray Bradbury. Ray Douglas Bradbury was an American fantasy, science fiction, and horror and mystery fiction author. Best known for his dystopian novel, that is Fahrenheit 451, and for the science fiction and horror stories gathered together as The Martian Chronicles and The Illustrated Man. Bradbury was one of the most celebrated 20th and 21st century American genre writers. He wrote and consulted on many screenplays and television scripts, including Moby Dick and It Came from Outer Space. Many of his works have been adapted into comic books, television shows, and films. Ray Bradbury was born on 22nd August 1920 in Waukegan, Illinois. He was given the middle name Douglas after the actor Douglas Fairbanks. An aunt read him short stories when he was a child. This period provided foundations for both the author and his stories. Bradbury, when he was 14, eventually settled in Los Angeles in 1934. Bradbury was a reader and writer throughout his youth. He knew as a young boy that he was going into one of the arts. In 1931, at the age of 11, young Ray began writing his own stories. In his youth, he spent much time in the Carnegie Library in Waukegan, reading such authors as H.G. Wells, Edgar, etc., etc. At age 12, Bradbury began writing traditional horror stories and said he tried to imitate Poe until he was about 18. He often visited the science fiction writer Bob Olson for mentorship as well as friendship while Bradbury was a teenager. They shared ideas and would keep in contact. Ray Bradbury was free to start a career in writing when, owing to his bad eyesight, he was rejected admission into the military during World War II. Bradbury sold his first story, The Lake, for $13.75 at the age of 22. It was in UCLA's Powell Library in a study room with typewriters for rent that Bradbury wrote his classic story of a book-burning future, The Fireman, which was about 25,000 words long. Bradbury was once described as a Midwest surrealist and is often labeled a science fiction writer. This story, All Summer in a Day, is set on the planet Venus, where the sun shines for only 2 hours once every 7 years. It opens on the day that the sun is due to make its appearance once again. Margo and the other children in her school on Venus are 9 years old. All Summer in a Day is a science fiction short story by Ray Bradbury, first published in the March 1954 issue of the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. The plot of the story, All Summer in a Day, only 2 things happen in terms of the plot. The sun comes out and Margo, who longs so deeply to see it, is locked away in a closet by the other children. The rest is the longing mood Bradbury evokes. So, come on students, let's get into the story. In All Summer in a Day, a group of school children live on the planet Venus with their families. They are 9 years old and they are eagerly awaiting a momentous occasion. After 5 years of continuous rain, the scientists on Venus have predicted that the sun will come out that day, that is today, for a brief period of time. The children have only seen the sun once in their lives, but they were 2 years old then and don't remember how it looked. To prepare for the day, they had constantly read about the sun and completed classroom activities such as writing a poem about the sun. This is true for all, but one of the children, that is Margo, a thin, pale girl that the rest of the children resent for various reasons, had lived in Ohio until she was 5. She still had many memories of the sun, and the sun continued to fascinate her. Margo refuses to participate in any classroom activity that doesn't include the sun. In fact, she had been in a depressed state for most of her time on Venus. Rumors have it that her parents were strongly considering taking her away from the underground colony on Venus and back to her home on Earth. So, what happened here? Margo is a girl who has seen the sun. She has the memories of the sun. So, whatever the activities she used to participate in the classroom, she used to speak about sun. So, she expressed her experiences of the sun, telling that the sun is a flower and that blooms for just 1 hour, etc., etc. But rest of the students are not ready to believe Margo, and they started teasing her by telling that you did not write this, etc., etc. So the teacher will scold one of the student, William, not to tease her, and this is the reason Margo is not ready to mingle with other students, because they are not ready to believe what Margo is speaking about the sun. Margo looks out of the window, waiting silently for the rain to stop and the sun to come out. The other children become upset with her and begin to push and taunt her suddenly. The children seize Margo and conceive the idea to hide Margo in a closet while their teacher is gone. Margo resists, but they overpower her and lock her in a faraway closet. So, overall, what happens in the first part of the story? In All Summer in a Day, a group of school children live on planet Venus with their families, or in the author's words, a group of rocket men and women who has gone to Venus to set up civilization. The children, mostly around 9 years old, are waiting eagerly for a special occasion for the sun to come out. It was been raining continuously for 7 years in Venus. So it has been raining continuously 7 years in Venus, and now the scientists of Venus have predicted that the sun will come out for a short period of time on that particular day. After that, it is 7 more years of continuous rain. You can imagine how overwhelmed and excited the kids must be feeling. The sun had been out before once when the kids were just 2 years old. So they don't remember anything except a warmth like a blush on the face and something similar to a steady lamp's light. Similar to a steady lamp light. In other words, they literally don't remember anything about it. But this is true for all the children except Margo, who is resented by all the children. Margo, a thin and pale girl, used to live in Ohio until she was 5. Hence, she still remembers the details and misses the sun badly. She is always quite depressed for the same reason. Margo was most excited to see the sun once again, to feel its warmth. She was standing near the window waiting for the sun when a few boys taunt her, saying it was all a joke and the sun is never coming out, while some others lock her in the cupboard when the teacher wasn't present there. The teacher returns and they all go to the tunnel's exit as she thinks everyone is present and accounted for from her class. Then, moments later, the rain stops and the sun appears. All of the children exit the tunnels and begin to run around and enjoy the sun. It is unlike anything they could imagine. They exult. It is better than the sun lamps, isn't it? As they run around the jungles of Venus. After playing and enjoying the weather, one of the girls cries out because she was cradling a big fat raindrop in her hand. Everyone stopped. They stood for a moment, thinking about how wonderful the sun felt on their skins. While they do so, the rain clouds move in. The sun retreats. The rain falls harder. All of the children stop for a moment before re entering the tunnels, reflecting on how wonderful the past hour was. As they re entered the hallway, they asked their teacher questions. Will it really be 7 more years? Once again, another student gave a muffled cry. She remembered that Margo was still in the closet. She had been there for the entire time that they were outside enjoying the sun soaked weather. They slowly walked towards the closet where they had left Margo, and they were all nervous to approach it. They slowly walked to the closet door, and no noises were emitted from behind the closet door. They unlocked the door, and Margo slowly emerged. So, what happens in the second part of the story? The teacher returns, and along with the children, they go to the tunnel's exit. The rain finally stops, and the sun comes out in all its glory. The kids run out into the lawn and enjoy the warmth of the sun, but no one remembers Margo. After some time, a kid screams as a big raindrop falls on her skin. They all look up at the sky and see that it is raining again. They stand there for a moment, disappointed but at the same time happy with the experience, and return to their classroom. As they enter the hallway, one of the students reminds that they have forgotten to unlock Margo. They all feel bad for what they have done and anxiously they go to unlock her. Behind the doors, no noise was to be heard. They slowly open the door and Margo emerges. The story ends at this point. So, the overall theme of the story, All Summer in a Day, is bullying and jealousy. Kids and people alike can be so mean when they are confronted with someone different than their current understanding or when they are jealous. Margo had known what the sun looked and felt like when she lived on earth, but the children of Venus who get to see the sun for 2 hours once every 7 years could not relate to her experience. So here, let's conclude the prose. All Summer in a Day by Ray Bradbury is based on the struggle of Margo, a sad soul stuck on a place she doesn't want to be. Since it is set up in a different planet altogether, the author quickly explains the complications and restrictions of the new world. He has also used a variety of metaphors to make the foreign situation familiar and easy for us. His simple words and clear descriptions portray a vivid image in your head upon reading. The characters or the children, except Margo, are portrayed at first in a negative light when they tried to mess around with Margo, but it was due to their resentment towards her, which is quite natural. But in the end, they realize their mistake and also realize how painful it must have been for her to abandon the warmth of the sun and live on the Venus. The way the author has described the kids' imaginations of the sun is really cute. But the best part, I think, is Margot's character. Literally, everyone can relate to her. Stuck in somewhere you don't want to be, bullied and taunted every day for no reason. No one seems to understand your pain, struggling to fit into the new place. The background may sound a bit extreme at first, but the author has done everything he could to make the reader feel familiar. The emotions of the characters, sadness, resentment, struggle, happiness, bliss, everything is portrayed in a very nice way without making the setting look unusual or weird. In the end, the kids who had previously resented Margo learned what it must have cost her to come and live on Venus, abandoning all the warmth and sunshine. Hence, they feel guilty of what they had previously done with Margo. The story thus explores the darker side of human nature that is manifest even in children and ends it on a note of hope as the children feel shame and remorse for their thoughtlessness. The title of the story is very interesting. It literally refers to the day when the sun comes out after 7 long years. This is like the whole summer to the people living on Venus. But on a metaphorical level, this is the day when the children have, for the first time, shown the good human side of their character and felt for Margo, who has come from Earth. They will probably not taunt her anymore. They realize the sadness and depression Margo must be in. So it is summer not only in the atmosphere but also in their mind, making the title All Summer in a Day just and apt. All in all, the author has been successful in setting up his imaginary world and the aura around it. So the story is about a class of school children on Venus, which in the story is a world of constant rainstorms, where the sun is only visible for 2 hours every 7 years. One of the children, Margo, moved to Venus from Earth 5 years earlier, and she is the only one in her class to remember sunshine since the sun shone regularly on Earth. She describes the sun as a penny or like a fire in the stove, and the other children, being too young ever to have seen it themselves, do not believe her. She is bullied and restricted by the other students and is locked in a closet down a tunnel. As the sun is about to appear, their teacher arrives to take the class outside to enjoy their 2 hours of sunshine, and in their astonishment and joy, they all forgot about Margo. They ran, play, skip, jump, and about every second of their newly found freedom. It is much better than sun lamps, one of them cries. Suddenly, a girl catches a raindrop in her hands, thunder sounds, and they start to cry and run back inside. At this point, one of them remembers Margo, who is still locked in the closet. Ashamed, they let her out of the closet, standing frozen, embarrassed over what they had done and unable to meet each other's glances. So the precious sun had come and gone, and because of their despicable act, Margo, who loved the sun the most, had missed it. Now let us discuss about the characters of the story. First character, Margo. Margo was a thin and delicate girl who looked as if she had been lost in the rain for years, and the rain had washed out the blue from her eyes and the red from her mouth and the yellow from her hair. She was an old photograph dusted from an album, whitened away, and her voice were still and raspy like that of a ghost. Margo is a sensitive, melancholy little girl whose soul's sadness seems reflected in the ever present rain. The sun in the story becomes the metaphor for all our longings and desires. Margo is a child who just doesn't fit in. Margo is from Earth and the other children are from Venus. In addition to that, Margo is delicate and sensitive and just doesn't associate with the other kids. They turned on themselves like a feverish wheel, all tumbling spokes. Margo stood alone. Margo came from Earth to Venus 5 years ago. She accurately recalled the sun and the way it looked and felt as it shone on her when she was back in Ohio. However, this is not the case with the other children. They were far too young to remember what the sun was like when last it shone upon them. They could only imagine the warmness of that sun upon their arms and legs. Margo tells the others that the sun is round like a penny and hot like a fire in the stove, etc., etc. The other children accuse her of lying and they show their resentment of her seeming superiority. Now, about other children. They are pale and colorless, not just physically but also emotionally. The lack of the sun has not only washed away the color on their skin but also their compassion and empathy for other people. They do not gain this until they have spent time under the sun's rays. The sun is life giving for the landscape as well as the inhabitants of Venus. The children are mean and jealous when confronted with someone different from their current understanding. The children are cruel to Margo because she is different and because they are jealous. Due to their actions, she misses seeing the sun. Only then do the children regret what they have done. So, students, here we have winded up the prose. Home assignment. Answer the following questions. Mention 2 ways in which life on planet Venus differs from life on Earth. Why was Margo unhappy on Venus in all summer in a day? How does the author characterize Margo in all summer in a day? Thank you all.